Welcome to the Level Up Artist Podcast, where we demystify the creative process and exchange ideas for career-minded artists. We are your hosts, Adriana and Mayanne.
Jackie Sanders. We're two emerging artists sharing forth the advice and business lessons we have learned along our journey. So if you're not already, please go ahead and subscribe. This will help other creatives like you find our podcast, and you'll be notified when we launch a new episode every Tuesday. On today's episode, we're going to be talking about a very common topic that artists talk about of to sale or not to sale. So are you going to put your artwork as a sale? So people use the word sale, discount, studio clear out, or spring cleaning. Basically, are you going to offer your artwork at a discount? And just some of the ideas or things to think about with this choice as a business owner. Because marking your artwork on sale is a strategy that many business owners use, whether in the arts fields or other products. But for artists, this can be a little bit of a slippery slope.
Yeah, so first we want to make the case for why you may want to mark down your work. Obviously, we see this around all the time. I mean, we are in a consumeristic, is that the word, society. So putting things at a price and then discounting them to encourage you to buy, we see it all day, every day. So when it comes to your artwork, however, some of the reasons you may want to look into discounting your work is perhaps you want to ride that wave that comes with holidays and special occasions. There's already marketing all around, Father's Day sale, Mother's Day sale, Christmas, whatever it is. And you're like, okay, so if consumers in general are already on that mindset of buying stuff for their loved ones and seeing things on sale, maybe I want to ride that wave too, right? So that's one idea why you may want to put your stuff on sale. Another common one that I've seen with other artists is if they want to move old artwork, whether it's just older inventory or it just doesn't match their current style. I've certainly done that in the past, but we'll talk about that more later. If you have storage limitations, so you definitely make artwork, this is probably like most artists, to be honest, that I know, you make faster than you sell. I mean, that's going to happen, and then you start running out of space. You're like, let me just do a fire sale and just get the stuff out. Or if you want to mark different things like milestones, like a birthday or an anniversary of some sort, like you could say, I've been 5 years, running my art business, so I will give 5% off. We've also seen the birthday one. Oh my God, please don't do the birthday one, which the older you get, the higher the discount. I mean, that has no limits, essentially. Yeah, anyways, that's a whole different story for another day. But that's another reason some folks will discount their work on sale.
Yeah, and I think that's an especially good point because we're all surrounded by media, whether on social media or newsletters or just on different websites. It's always sale this, sale that, Black Friday, 4th of July sale, Memorial Day sale, whatever it is. And so sometimes, especially if you're newer in your business, you may think, oh, well, this is just what I'm supposed to do. This is what I have to do as a business owner to compete. But not really realizing, like the birthday example, you're like, oh, well, I'm turning 30, so I'm going to give 30% off. Well, when you turn 60, are you going to give 60% off? And really making sure that you realize, like, what are the long-term repercussions of having this short-term win? Because even if you have pure intentions with discounting your work in the beginning, there are some potential negatives to discounting your work that we want to discuss. And so that we're not saying that you can't or that you shouldn't discount your work. We just want to make sure that you are aware of these factors so that you know the choice that you are making as a business owner. Because when it comes down to it, that's the biggest thing is you are in control of your business. There's nothing that you have to do as a business besides paying taxes and filing legal documents, those you have to do. But other than that, it's up to you. And so we want to make sure you're making educated, smart decisions and understanding those long-term repercussions.
Yeah. One of the biggies for me is like, okay, and we talk about this often, I feel like, where we say, like, what do you want to be known for? And if someone's looking at your artwork, right, and say there's two pieces that look about the same next to each other, you can tell the difference, right? But to somebody walking in, some of them are on sale, or all of it is on sale, do you want your potential collector to say, is this one bad or in comparison to this one, or not as good as to this one? Like, where there pricing discrepancies, especially if you're showing what the sale is. So you're like, it was $200 and now it's $100. That might bring up the question. And honestly, when it comes to your sales process, you want clarity and transparency to be king, right? Like you don't want your potential consumer to just sit there wondering why, like what's wrong with it? Like why did I come here yesterday and it was this price and I come today and it's a different price, right? Like you definitely want it to be consistent, but also, and probably one of the most important is if you want to pay yourself a living wage, doing discounts affects your profit margin. So if you're working with a gallery, you're already taking this into account, right? You're already delegating some of the work to do this in the sales process, and that's part of what you're paying them to. But if you're doing the discount yourself, for example, and you're already doing all the same things, you're paying yourself less for the same amount of work or even more work, aren't you? So that's another thing that just kind of comes to mind. And it just kind of breaks my heart sometimes when I see an artist and they say 50% off, and I'm like, oh, why? Like, I mean, do you want to do this? Like, now, if this is a hobby, don't get me wrong. You do you, boo. That's not who we're talking to. Um, it's more like if you want to do this for a living and or side job that actually brings you actual significant income, or you're building your way towards it, then you're affecting how much you're bringing home, by discounting. So yeah, definitely think about why. Why would you?
Yeah, and I think I always think of it from like a consumer standpoint of the habits that you're building. Of
Mhm.
like in any industry, once you offer a discount for a product, you're almost training your audience or your future collectors or consumers to expect that discount to happen again. So just like in the example you mentioned, Adriana, if you said, "Oh, well, I came here yesterday and it was $100 more expensive," thank goodness, like one person could say, "Oh, well, thank goodness I came in. Now it's discounted." But now every time they see your piece on social media or they see your piece in a newsletter, they automatically, whether consciously or subconsciously, they assume at some point that will be on a discount too in the future. So it really kind of it might bring a lot of hesitation for future purchases from that same person, because they say like, why would I pay full price if I know that maybe if I wait it out and no one else buys it, I can get it at a discount. Or worse, they think that, oh, well, if you normally charge $200 and now you're charging 100, like they feel like you were overcharging them for the original price. Except if you are properly pricing your pieces and properly giving yourself a living wage and profit margins, then it kind of, you want to be able to stand strong in your pricing, and not even place that seed of doubt that any of your pieces are worth anything less than what they are priced for, which I think is a very empowering feeling as a business owner. And sometimes, in the eyes of the consumer, or even in your own mind, the second you sell it for a lower price, that
Mhm.
becomes the default of what its value really is.
Yeah, and on the contrary, you want the price of your work to go up over time, not have someone waiting out till you do a discount on it so they buy it for less. You want to make more, not less. So there's also something else to talk about with this, and it's, if you are trying to position yourself and or sell, your art for the higher end of the market, whatever that means for you in the place that you're in right now in your career and your work, um, the higher you go up, the less or the more price insensitive those consumers are going to be. So doing a sale is not going to persuade them to buy more. So to put it this way, if you're selling $10,000, artwork, you saying, "Oh, it went from 10,000 to 8,000. Come and get it. They're nice and hot and ready. Come and get them." Someone that's already willing to spend 8,000, an extra 2,000 makes no difference to them. You know what I mean? Like it's already at that end of the scale. They're not going to care. So if that's where you have your eyes set on, which you don't have to, by the way, I'm not saying you want to sell artwork for 10,000, but if you are trying to go for the higher end of the market, like that perception, if you're that artist that sells buy three, get one free kind of thing, that's going to affect the perception that your consumer may have of you and of the art itself, because you're giving some of it for free or discounted, kind of like what you were saying, Jackie. What's wrong with it? Is there something off about this art?
Right. And I think that really comes down to that main thing that we talk about a lot is like what is your intention with wanting to discount it? And like you were saying with the 10,000 or 8,000, like, will this discount truly move the needle as to if someone would buy it or not? Like, if you're truly doing it from, okay, this person could not afford it unless this, that is a different discussion. And there also are some alternative options or ways to, yes, on paper, it may be a discount to the work, but the way you phrase it and the way you market it or choose not to market it can really influence the perception of that discount and how people relate to your artwork.
Yeah, and if you're pricing fairly, you don't want to discount it to a point that then there's like this resentment that will grow inside of you. Like, oh, I let it go too cheap. Like, I spent 16 hours on this painting and I didn't even make minimum wage on it. You know what I mean? Like, you definitely want to feel good about it, maybe slightly uncomfortable, in terms of pricing, but that's a whole different discussion. But what you don't want to feel is like you just cheated yourself, like you just paid yourself less. So some of the alternative options, if you're like, well, I don't know, I do want to be able to encourage additional sales, at least from time to time. One of the easiest ones that I do personally, and I know a lot of artists do too, is to not necessarily publicize it, but you could do a case by case type of sale. So, for example, you could do family and friends. My personal one is up to 15%. Where if I have, perhaps it's another artist buying from me, that is what I feel comfortable, like limit wise, giving to a discount, depending on our relationship. Not stranger up the road, for the record. But depending on our relationship, say they're in a tight spot, that's what I'm willing to do, right? Or whether publicized or not, if you're doing volume-based pricing. So you could say, hey, this collector is buying 2-3 paintings. Maybe I'll knock a little bit off the top, to encourage them to grab that fourth painting too. So volume-based obviously can also be where you publicize it. So there are artists that we know that will say buy 3 prints and the fourth one's free, but it'll actually be blazoned on their market display or in their studios. So you could definitely go that way too. Speaking of other publicized versions, you can also do limited time periods. So not setting the expectation that this is a recurring thing, like the birthday one or Mother's Day or whatever. You could always just do like, oh, I'm moving studios, for example. So for a limited time period, either to everyone or to a qualified group like repeat collectors or people that you designate as friends and family, which you get to define that, you could offer sales for a limited amount of time.
Right. And I think all of this comes with that caveat of when you are originally pricing your artwork, which we've talked about on other episodes, of you're almost building these discounts into your original pricing anyway. So all this being said of like, you're never going to, or should never offer a discount to the point where it takes away your entire profit margin and you're just breaking even or worse, losing money. You're almost building in, okay, what is this as a business owner? What is my policy on discounts and up to what point to where I'm still getting a good amount of profit? But so when you do buy 3 pieces or buy 3 prints, get the fourth free, for example, that's with the understanding that the profit margins on all 4 of those are so high that eating the cost for that one isn't going to make or break the bank. But another thing that you can do in addition to having different just for a limited time period sales is doing a specific sale for a group of pieces. So you could say, okay, only my art products are ever going to be at a discount, or only this time of year, if it is a reoccurring event, like, hey, I'm only going to do a 4th of July sale and that's it. And you can publicize that with your marketing, because I think that's a huge part of kind of training your audience of what they can expect. Because the second you do one sale, as we said earlier, they almost expect, oh, well, if they do a 4th of July sale, they'll probably do a Black Friday sale, and they'll probably do a New Year's sale. So I'll just wait a few months until then. But if making sure that your messaging is in setting expectations is so clear up front, which makes you also make a decision up front of what are you going to do, so that you can tell others what you're going to do. But making sure you say, this is the only time all year that these pieces will be at a discount. Once it's done, it's done. And making sure that that's very clear so that people aren't led to believe anything else. And also, another way in which you can do it that may be more ongoing, if you don't feel comfortable necessarily deciding that right away or offering a week-long sale or however long period of time, is if you decide to do some type of giveaway, making sure that you leverage, okay, I'm offering a free print for making sure you're using it to leverage an additional beneficial action. Of course, getting money is always a wonderful way, but maybe you do it as a incentive for people to sign up for your newsletter. Maybe you have an in-person market and you have a print set up next to your email sign-up list and say, everyone that signs up for my email today will be entered to win a free print. And one person from the list today is going to get a free print. So yes, you're eating that monetary cost of that one print. However, maybe you add 150 people to your newsletter, which then becomes an asset for your business. So you can then start to market them over time. And that might turn into an original art sale of $4,000 or $5,000 or whatever it is. So asking for email addresses, a Google review is always a great way, some type of testimonial. If you're looking to grow your social media following, that's another thing that you can leverage. But really making sure that you are giving it away, and yes, eating the monetary cost of that piece. We kind of go by the rule of, if you're going to give away something, it should be reproducible or something that did not take a lot of time. You don't necessarily want to give away a $5,000 painting unless it's a donation to an organization in which you're fundraising money for. And that's a whole nother choice as a business. But making sure that you are truly getting some type of benefit rather than just giving it away for free.
Yeah. And we both know artists that, for example, part of their policy, like you mentioned, is they'll only, if they do a sale, they'll only be on reproductions. So that way, if there's a profit margin, and especially if you're not doing it yourself and you have a third party that's doing your prints, where you set the profit margin, then it makes it a lot easier for you to offer a discount, increase your sales of that specific product without devaluing your actual original work. Because people understand, oh, it's a print, it's obviously never going to be worth as much as an original, but it doesn't have the same kind of negative connotation of, oh, I just marked down a $5,000 painting for $2,000. Wait, what was wrong with it? If you discount a print, it might be like, oh, yeah, I don't think anybody really thinks about that twice. But also, if you're like, depending what kind of market you're going after, what kind of collectors you have, another type of alternative, discount to kind of consider is if you were going to do a sliding scale option. So with a sliding scale, a lot of times that has to do, it's mostly honesty system, let's be real. But it's basically if someone says, look, my economic means do not allow me to pay full price for this thing, but I'm willing to pay X, right? And you get to decide if you're going to set a range or not, and then go from there. But it's based on if somebody can afford it or not, for the most part, right? That's kind of where you're going. This is very similar to a pay what you can option. Pay what you can, on the other hand, is the range that you're setting for the price. You're going on the bottom end, the least that you're willing to take for that piece. And then on the upper end, maybe a little bit higher than what you would normally price it at. And that one, the difference is instead of just catering to, in a way, kind of do a discount based on the person's economic situation, this one allows you to kind of level it out a little bit more, because if you have someone of means that's willing to pay on the higher end of the spectrum, then perhaps that helps average out for those folks that have to pay on the lower end of the spectrum. And with both of them, you literally are basically like giving an option for people with different budgets to still acquire your work. But with that second one, the biggest thing is you're allowing folks or encouraging folks that can pay more to not just make them feel bad about a limited budget. Instead, it's more based on what is their actual situation and them wanting to support you. And then another version of this is to offer free shipping. So that way you're not directly discounting your work, right? I know of other artists that will also discount the work by the amount of the sales tax that would have been charged otherwise. They're still paying sales tax for the record, but to make it a little bit more enticing, you know, if someone's like, hey, can you discount the work, right? There'll always be a collector, a potential collector that wants a discount and they feel like they need to get a good deal. That could be another way to do it, where you say, okay, where do you live? I'll deliver it to your house, or I'll ship it to your house. I'll eat the cost, or I'll discount it by the sales tax. And, you know, we'll kind of share that burden a little bit. But essentially that way you're not lowering the value of the work itself. You're just finding a different way to kind of entice them to complete the purchase.
And so whether you decide to offer a discount or not, there are always going to be positions that you as a business owner have to take. And so hopefully this conversation helped with even just bringing up the ideas and the options as to what are available. If you decide not to offer discounts to your work, inevitably, just warning you now, there are gonna be people that ask for a discount, whether in person, whether on social media, whether at a market. They might say, oh, well, can you offer me a discount on this? Or maybe they try to say, hey, this costs $100, I'll give you 70 for it. And if you really want to stay firm in your pricing, then one great alternative can be to offer them another piece within their budget. Iterate to them that, hey, like I don't offer discounts on my pieces. However, this is another piece of a similar style or smaller scale that is within your budget. You can also offer payment plan options. And so if someone cannot necessarily afford to pay $2,000 in an afternoon, say, hey, I do offer monthly payment plan options and have your terms and conditions laid out. But say with a deposit, you can reserve this. And then once all of your monthly payments are made, you can have this piece in your home. So that's a great alternative, especially when it comes to a consumer budgeting standpoint. It kind of takes the work off them to budget every month and then come back to you to buy it, and really gets you those monthly payments until it's complete. Or if they're really, really pushing and you maybe get a little defensive, they just are saying, well, why won't you give me a discount? Blah, blah, blah. The two main points that I always try to iterate are really just reminding people that if you decide to discount one piece of artwork for them, then anyone who bought pieces within that series as a full price, it's basically devaluing the work that they purchased. And so to keep it fair to everyone, to keep it fair to your current collectors, you are deciding to keep everything at that value. And if anything, the price will only go up because your value as an artist and collector base will go up with time. And reminding people the value of original artwork, reminding them of, in not necessarily a defensive way, but strictly from an educational standpoint of these aren't mass-produced objects all the time, and that these take hours to make, especially if it's an original. The cost of materials, maybe not itemizing it, but reminding people the value of original art and investing in an original artist is very different than going to Target and picking up a piece simply to fill up wall space.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, I've had a few of those myself. They're always a bit of a challenge. I will say one quick parenthesis though, there could be a cultural situation. Um, there are there are other cultures in other countries where you have to haggle. Like that's it.
Right.
You're supposed to haggle everything because literally the price you're being given on any given product, including art sometimes, it is higher than the estimated value of it, even by the artists themselves. And they're just trying to see like how much they can get, and you are supposed to haggle. So outside of that and respectfully trying to work with them, I definitely would kind of gently and lovingly remind them, the different things that you talked about, Jackie, but also when you're buying original artwork from the artist, you are supporting the artist directly. So you don't go to Target and ask them for a discount. You don't go to a charity and say, I want to support you, but I want to give you less than you're asking for, even though the minimum to give is $5, going to give you $3 instead. If you really want to help somebody, you don't try to discount how much you want to help them by. You know what I mean? Like, this is not I want to get a deal on, mugs like that are commercially produced somewhere. This is like actual original stuff. So there is that. There are ways to gently and lovingly remind them. But with all that said, if you do decide to sell your artwork at a discount, which of course you don't have to, it's a choice, whether originals or only reproductions like prints, just be super duper conscious and clear in your tone, in your wording, in your messaging, on what your intent is. You just want to make sure that whatever you do, you don't want to discount it so deeply that you end up at a loss or end up resentful of the amount of money that you got versus the amount of work that you put in. I mean, it's an exchange. You're creating something in exchange for this magical thing called money that helps you pay your bills and buy more materials to make more art, right? Like, you want to make enough respectfully and not feel anything about it here. So with that said, hope you enjoyed this episode.
As always, our blog will be linked in today's show notes where you can find episode notes and links to all of our other podcast episodes.
If you want to stay connected with us in between episodes, share what you have learned, and you have some kind of sales strategy that you want to share with us, we're on social media. My name is Mark across all platforms.
And I'm at JSander Studio on all platforms. Or if you want to stay connected to the podcast, we are at Level Up Artists on Instagram. Thank you so much for listening. Talk to you next week.